Welcome to my kitchen. So I'm fairly new to making vinegars, but I wanted to bring you along the process of where I'm at, what I'm experimenting with, and hopefully we can all learn together in the art of making our own vinegars. So our book club, some community members here wanted to kind of start sharing some videos and tips and tricks on lots of different aspects of prepping. And so here's kind of the introductory video. It's going to be kind of rough. It's my first one, but hopefully we can kind of expound and perfect from here. So these are my first two vinegars. I watched some YouTube videos and got on a whim. I didn't even know it was possible. I thought you had to have like some heavy machinery and equipment and all this kind of stuff to process vinegar. But come to find out, it's super simple, right at home. So I made a pear vinegar and a raisin vinegar to start off with because that's what I had at the time that I got this whim. And it's kind of evolved from there. So I will show you a little bit later where I'm at, what I'm doing, and showing a couple processings of some of these fruits here. So why do we want to make our own vinegars? There's so many benefits, and it's really easy and really cheap to do. So why not? It's a perfect thing to get started on and learn how to do this while the going's good. And we can get some of these fruits and things at great prices while they're in season. So the number one thing for me is the probiotic reasons. It's great for gut health. So it can be consumed in many different foods just by itself or as a vinegar fizz, kind of a recipe from back in the day. My grandpa Leo really loved his vinegar fizz, and so when I was doing family history work, that really stood out to me and decided to try it. It was delicious. Now, not all vinegar fizzes are made the same, so I'll give you some hints and recipes on that in a future thing. So it can be used as shampoo. It can be used for other hygiene things, cleaning. I mean, it's so versatile. Anytime that you would need vinegar, washing windows, or anything else, you can do it from your own vinegars instead of having the store-bought versions. So let's go through and kind of talk about some of the different categories of fruits here, and I'll show you some links to videos that I found very helpful in explaining this as well. I'm just kind of the second-hand novice here. I'm just kind of taking what I've learned and somewhat putting it together for you. So we have more of the citrus fruits, the stone fruits, bananas, which are kind of its own category in and of itself. We have berries, we have like dried fruits like raisins and apples and things, some of these more fresh fruits, and dates, figs, plums, prunes, all of that kind of stuff in the dried category as well. So when you're going about to start making your own vinegars, you really don't need a whole heck of a lot. So it's just the fruit, and mostly you're just going to be using the scraps that you eat, that you're just going to discard or throw out to the chickens after you eat the fruit. So you'll have that as your main basis, water, filtered water, and a jar to store it in for the fermentation process, a cloth or coffee filter, cheesecloth, anything to cover it so that air can still get into the jar of the water. I have lots of these little cloths. I bought them in bulk, and they come in really handy. Some people put rubber bands on them. I don't find it necessary because I'm constantly rotating through this. You can see this one right here. I filled the jar a little too full, and so it wicked out one of the days when the fermentation was really bubbling up. Now it's calmed down and everything, but yeah, I'll just go ahead and discard that one and wash it and replace it with a new one here after this video. But I wanted to show you why you wouldn't want to fill your jar so full like I did. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to kind of rearrange things and get stuff set up. All right, just got back from washing these peaches. I was at the store earlier today and was trying to find something that I could make for this video. So I was trying to find very ripe fruit. One of the clerks was getting ready to throw a couple of these away, and I was like, hey, can I just have those? So that's a great benefit if you catch them on their restocking. All right, so since these are about to turn, I'm not going to eat them, but you definitely could eat them and then just put the scraps in here. But I've cleaned and sterilized this jar earlier, and I am just cutting out the stone. So you don't want absolutely rotten fruit, but the riper the better. So, you know, like when it's a banana, like on the turn, it's pretty, got lots of spots on it. That's going to speed up the fermentation process and get that yeast and bacteria feeding really quickly. So, just kind of chopping this up a little finer. The more surface area that you can get, the better, from what I've learned. And actually, I've seen some people omit it, but some people put it in. I'm just going to do the stone right in there. And it's about that simple. So I'm just going to finish cutting this up really quick. In the future, I will be doing experiments with and without skin, like all of the different possibilities and how they turn out, because I know that they affect the color and the clarity of the vinegar. And so I will be doing more experimentations on that in the future. You wouldn't want to put just the whole fruit in the jar. It wouldn't work very well. It would slow down the process of everything. So it's best to kind of dice it up. Some people puree it, which I don't know. I find that mine that have been pureed don't go as well, and they're more susceptible to mold. But you know, I'm new to this whole ballgame too, so tell me what you'd like to do. Or if you've found or heard anything different, I would love to hear it. So, just finishing cutting up this. Huge. Alright, so this is a good example of something that at the beginning I questioned. Do I put this in? I'm going to show the camera close up that this is really starting to turn. It's very mushy here on this side. But it's not black. It's not actually rotten. It's just very overly ripe. So I am going to go ahead and put this in. But if you had something that was quite a bit different, quite a bit darker, quite a bit, like actually in that rotten stage, I would not put that in. But that's just me. Maybe it works. I don't know. Alright, where I got this stone out very cleanly, I'm going to omit that one. The other stones that I put in were because the actual fruit was attached to it, and it would take a lot of work to cut it off and everything, but I will strain that out in a couple days once that fermentation has started and really released it. Okay, now this peach is definitely not ripe at all, so I'm going to leave it here and do that in a future one. So as you can see, when you smush, and this has been sterilized, I sterilized that whole thing. Anyway, you wouldn't want to introduce anything that hasn't been sterilized at this point into it. You want all of that good, clean environment to start this off with. I mean, we are wanting it to ferment and actually go bad, but we want to control what's in there. So as I kind of push this down, you can kind of see where I'm at. It's about at the halfway mark, and as that fills up with water, you want a good amount of fruit in there. I'll show you a mistake I made earlier on a different thing. So this is my homemade Berkey water filter made out of 5-gallon buckets, and I'm just going to fill this up with water. Now, as you can see, I am only filling this up to about here, just about a ½ an inch away from the throat of the jar. I'm doing that because, as I showed you before, sometimes, especially with a highly sugary, bubbly fermentation that's going to happen here, this is going to rise quite a bit. So I'm filling it up to there. So, I mean, there still has a possibility of overflowing, but it's less than if I were to fill it clear up into that throat. So, what I'm going to do at this point is just to kind of kickstart that fermentation process so that the yeasts in the air can have something to feed off the first 2 days. I'm going to add probably like 1.5 to 2 tablespoons of sugar for this first part. I'm just going to give that a good stir. Make sure to kind of try to mush up the fruit a little bit so that some of that actual pulp gets into the water. Alright, so what I will do at this point is use my labeler and put what date I'm starting this on. This label is a lifesaver so that I can keep all of them, keep track of all of them because they're all in different stages and different experimentations. So peach vinegar, October 18th, 2021. And just for the process, I would put a cloth on that and put it at room temperature, and we are going to be stirring it every single day. So let me show you here. This is a pineapple vinegar that I started October 11th, so it's about a week old. And what you want to do is the fruit that has come to the top, that is going to be susceptible to mold if you don't stir it every day. So just pushing it down, making sure that all of the liquid is washing over, kind of cleansing it a little bit. You can see here that this has quite a bit of fizz up here around the top. So for a week, this is doing excellent. And you can see there's quite a bit bubbling up on the side there. That's exactly what you want. So words of wisdom that I would imply on, especially in the summertime, you're going to get a lot of fruit flies circling your stuff. So these little handy fruit fly traps at Walmart are just the ticket. I set them right by here, keep it filled up, and it's good to go. Keeps those at bay quite a bit. Alright, so let's process a pineapple here. So showing you my process on the pineapple, I'll get my tools out. Now on pineapples, I bought both of these today. I bought one of each color so we can kind of see ripeness. Obviously this one on the left is very green. We are going to set that one aside and process it a different day. But this one right here is also pretty green. The more ripe that you can find it, the better. Show you the bottom here of this pineapple. That's what you're wanting. A very ripened, very yellow, very squishy, not super squishy, but pretty squishy there. Up here towards the top, it's still pretty green. But ideally, if you're wanting to speed up the process on a pineapple, you will cut off the top and set it like that, and the sugars will start going downward. Or you can just twist off the top and set it there, but I find that the pineapple is still kind of unstable and rolls off my counter all the time. So I like to cut it, put it on a board, and set it there for a day so that it can kind of finish sugaring the rest of the pineapple. Alright, so get my other clean jar over here. I'm going to be putting all of the scraps in here, and I'm going to be freeze drying the innards of the pineapple later on tonight as we get going. Alright, so cutting off the top and using my pineapple quarter, the middle. This makes it so much easier. When somebody on my mission in Mexico introduced me to a pineapple corer, it changed my life. I always get canker sores from pineapples regardless, but even more so when I'm just trying to cut it myself and getting all of those, I don't know, blisters is what I call them, but I don't know what they're actually called. It's as easy as that. So I'm going to set these on my tray for freeze drying. All right, so now we have this whole hunk of a thing that we normally would throw away, but we can use it to make the most delicious vinegar ever. So I'm going to take the top and just cut it into a few pieces here. This is pretty green, but ideally you would want to have this a little bit more ripened, but we're going to add some sugar to it so that it speeds up that process in the jar. I started 5 pineapples the other day. 2 of them were very ripe and 2 of them were kind of in that green stage, and they're both about the same place right now. So I'm not super worried about a citrus because it will ferment fairly quickly, fairly well without too much worries. So just kind of chopping them up roughly. Oh, and don't forget the most important part, well, not the most important part, but sometimes I forget that inside the core is a great part to ferment. Hopefully that all recorded. I don't know what happened. Okay, so now that we've got all of our pineapple chunks from the rind in the jar, like I said, I'm just going to put a little bit of sugar in to jumpstart the process so that the yeast and bacteria have something to feed off for those first 2 days, but it doesn't take long because that pineapple's sugars release and start feeding it after that. So I'm just going to top it off with water. I don't know, I live on my own well, and so the water is probably fine for this process, but just showing you what you can do at home. I invested in making my own water filter here, just super handy. You just fill in the top, filters it through to the bottom bucket, and I can use it for this, for cooking, for lots of different things. I thought it was kind of silly at first, but I'm a total believer. It's very handy. All right, so here I have my pineapple. I have filled it about 1/2 to 3/4 an inch below the throat of the jar. Just throw a cloth over it, and we'll stir it every day. All right, now, so we've done a citrus. Let's go ahead. I'm really anxious to process these pomegranate arils. I always forget what those are called. Arils, whatever they are. Super simple so that I couldn't find a full pomegranate, so I bought these. But the pomegranate would be awesome because you could just put the pomegranate rind in there. So, just going to pour these on in. All right, now with these pomegranates, we could let them just go by themselves, but if we muddle them, if we break them down a little bit, kind of crush them, release some of those juices, break up those berries a little bit, it's going to just speed it up a day or so. So with these vinegars, we are going to first turn them into a fruit wine, and then we are going to take that fruit wine and convert it into vinegar. So overall, the least amount of days is 30, but I like to just make sure, and so I usually go 40 to 50 days on my fermentation process. But after the first 15 to 20 days, we will be straining off all of the actual fruits in here after it's made a good fruit wine. It can be as little as 7 days and up to 15 to 20 days. And then we're going to take the actual fruit out, strain it out, so that it's just the juice. And then that fruit wine will then get introduced to acetobacter, etc., and make the vinegar. All right, so I'm just going to take this, top it off with the water. And then, like the rest, I will be adding a little bit of sugar to jumpstart that fermentation process. Now, again, I will be linking to all of kind of my inspiration videos, the ones that I've learned from. I really like to have people that have differing opinions and different processes as to experiment and learn and grow with it. So some of the ones that I'm sharing, this is just what's worked for me and where I'm at in my experimentation. But some of the videos that I'll share will definitely disagree with some of my things. So you'll take it for what it's worth, make your own process, do what you need to do. One of the ones that I loved that opened my eyes to a new process was, and I'll link that down below, but he talked about his experimentations with fresh fruit versus dried fruit. And he said that dried fruit was very less susceptible to mold and bad bacteria growing on the top. And so I've experimented with that. It's totally true. So if you are in a place, especially if it's hot and humid and it's kind of hard to control some of your vinegars, during that summertime, that's what I like to do. That's what I'm going to be doing in the future, is be using a lot more of the dried fruits to jumpstart that. You're going to have to use more vinegar to kickstart it because those sugars aren't readily available, but it is very handy because I have tons of apple slices from the LDS cannery and throw those in a jar. That's what this one is, an experimentation with fresh apples and dehydrated apples. And it's just a great way to get started. So another quick thing is about using a mother. So for example, let's actually make a apple cider vinegar. So let me wash my apples really quickly. Alright, apple cider vinegar. I'm going to add a little bit of sugar, jumpstart that process for the first couple days, and then I am going to use an additional Kickstarter to get this going well. And you can do this once your vinegar supply is handy and up and going. I'm going to use a store-bought one, but it needs to be raw, unfiltered, and unpasteurized with the mother. So as you're making vinegars, it will develop a mother. If it's good and healthy and strong, it'll develop a fairly thick, very slimy, gelatinous formation on the surface, the top of your liquid. And you can buy that raw in the store and get this jump started. So anytime that you have the mother from a previous batch or from store-bought, you can add that into a future vinegar, and it will really speed up that process and help it develop the right flavors. It introduces the right acetobacter right off the bat and everything. In the videos, it explains all the technical stuff a lot better than I can. I'm not as versed in it. I just know it works because it's excellent. Started, you just need, I don't know, 2 to 3 tablespoons of the raw kind of vinegar. And so you could use it off of a previous one. I could pull one out of my cupboard and use that. And then top it off with that filtered water. So this one, just to recap, it has the apples, the filtered water, a little bit of sugar, and some of the raw, unfiltered, unpasteurized vinegar with the mother to kickstart it up. This brand is Bragg Organic. And in the store, you'll be able to kind of move it around and see some of that floating material, kind of a sediment down there. So, where are we at? We've got some of these dried things that I'm going to process, some of these citrus. This is a jar of cherry tomatoes, so super sweet 100s and a Golden Glory, I believe it is, that I just grew here in my house over the past couple months. These have just been kind of drying and wasting away on my counter. I kind of got sick of tomatoes, had too many, and so this is what I've got left, and so I'm going to actually process this into a tomato vinegar as well. So I'm going to muddle it first, just kind of release some of those that haven't. Another thing that you can also do with these is make infusion blends as well. So you can add some herbs. So say you wanted like a lemon rosemary or a orange lavender or whatever you like. You can also add herbs, and I have not experimented with those, so that's going to be either next month or the next. I don't know. I got a lot of counter space and real estate tied up now, but I'm going to be experimenting those. Experimenting starting off with them in the jar versus adding them in later and creating an infusion down the road. But I will get back to you on that. For now, that kind of gives a sample of all of the basics anyway, of making your own vinegar at home. Super tasty. So let me finish off with a quick recipe. This is my grandpa's vinegar fizz. His was just regular vinegar, but I'm going to be using this pear vinegar that I just made. Start off with some ice and some mineral water. The mineral water, I'm not going to make super much, maybe like a cup. And then add your vinegar to taste. Needs quite a bit more than that. This pear vinegar is about at day 40, I believe, 40, somewhere right around in there. And so it's not as strong, it's not as acidic as, you know, your store-bought ones, and so it needs a little bit more to give that flavor. So I've probably added about 3 tablespoons to a cup of mineral water to kind of dilute that down. There we go. That's the sweet spot. So it has just a little bit of that vinegar kick, but not so much that it's overpowering at all. And you don't have to use mineral water if you don't want to. I can see definitely why some people are adverse to it, but just regular water with that vinegar, it's excellent. It's an awesome little refreshing drink. So cheers to that. Start making your own vinegar. Let me know how it goes, any questions you have. If I don't know, because I probably don't, I will look it up and get back to you. But I'll link all of those videos that I mentioned in the description below so that you can check them out yourself. Have a great day.